सावधूतं परिजना सहितं कृष्ण चैतन्य देवं श्री राधा कृष्ण पदान् सावधूतं ललिता श्री विशाखान्वितांश्च श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासदि गौरभक्तवृन्द श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासदि गौरभक्तवृन्द श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासदि गौरभक्तवृन्द Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama.
Hare Krishna, Sri Bhagavat Prabhu ji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna devotees, welcome all of you for the today's morning program, Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. And today we are very fortunate to have His Grace Sri Bhagavat Prabhu, and Prabhu will enlighten us on Srimad Bhagavatam, 6th canto, 2nd chapter, 49th verse, remembering the holy name at the time of death. Over to you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Okay, thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Welcome everyone to Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. We are continuing the verses, remembering the holy name week. We have the holy name week from September 17th onwards. So we have been reading verses that are related to the glories of holy name. So as part of that series, today we'll be discussing on this topic, remembering at the time of death, which is a very important moment. And we'll be discussing from the verse 49 from 2nd chapter of 6th canto. So before I begin, I seek the blessings of all the assembled Vaishnavas and start with the auspicious invocation for the Srimad Bhagavatam. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayana Namaskrityam Naranchaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttamasloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nandagopakumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. So we'll first read the verse, the meanings and the translation and the small purport, and then we'll begin with the auspicious prayers and then the discussion. So today's verse, as it's mentioned, so I'll read the verse. Mriyamano harer nama grinan putropacharitam ajamilo apyagadhama kimuta shraddhaya grinan. Mriyamano harer nama grinan putropacharitam ajamilo apyagadhama kimuta shraddhaya grinan. Mriyamano harer nama grinan putropacharitam ajamilo apyagadhama kimuta shraddhaya grinan. Mriyamanaha, at the time of death, harer nama, the holy name of Hari. Grinan, chanting Putra Upacharitam, indicating his son. Ajamila, Api, even. Agat went. Dhama, to the spiritual world. Kimuta, what to speak of. Shraddhaya, with faith and love. Grinan, chanting. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation: while suffering at the time of death, Ajamila chanted the holy name of the Lord. And although chanting was directed toward his son, he nevertheless returned home back to Godhead. Therefore, if one faithfully and inoffensively chants the holy name of the Lord, where is the doubt that he will return to Godhead? Purport. At the time of death, one is certainly bewildered because his bodily functions are in disorder. At that time, even one who throughout his life has practiced chanting the holy name of the Lord may not be able to chant the Hare Krishna mantra very distinctly. Nevertheless, such a person receives all the benefits of chanting the holy name. While the body is fit, therefore, why should we not chant the holy name of the Lord loudly and distinctly? If one does so, it is quite possible that even at the time of death, he will be properly able to chant the holy name of the Lord with love and faith. In conclusion, one who chants the holy name of the Lord constantly is guaranteed to return home back to Godhead without a doubt. Yeah. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Gnananjana Salakaya Chakshurul Militam Mena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Katha Mayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakhanvitam Sya Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityanamne Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatati Shatarine Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauravati Pancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namaha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Mostade Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Once again, welcome to you all. There is some supplementary note to this chapter at the after the purport. We'll discuss that as we go along. And again, once again, warm welcome to everyone, especially on the auspicious occasion of Bhadrapada Purnima, where the exclusive glorification of Srimad Bhagavatam is supposed to be done. And when we are very fortunate, myself also have this opportunity to read and glorify in the midst of the assembled Vaishnavas. This verse is among the many verses in Srimad Bhagavatam that describe the unlimited glories of chanting the holy name. In fact, here in this verse, it is talking about the character Ajamila, where he was on the deathbed and he chanted his son's name loudly, even though his intention was not to call out the Lord, but his son's name happened to be Narayana, and he called out, and at once all his sinful reactions that he had performed, not only had performed in the past, that he could not even imagine to perform in the future, all the effects of those sinful acts have been nullified and he was saved. So we will discuss further on this topic. But what to speak of this, in fact, because it's a Srimad Bhagavatam glorification also. So in elsewhere in Srimad Bhagavatam, it is mentioned not just at least here it is mentioned out of anxiety and with great pain he handed out the Lord's name. Whereas if one even we see this in our general day-to-day life also, when someone falls or slips or curves or feeling pain, they chant out Lord's names. So even if one does that, the Lord, all their sinful reactions are nullified. It further says that not just these activities, but if someone who is chanting the holy name and then he has accidentally falls off the terrace, or if there is some kind of an accident, or if there is a broken bone or any other mishaps, still that person will be delivered from all the sinful reactions. He will suffer. I mean, he will escape the sufferings of the hellish life. So this is the unimaginable and unlimited glories of the holy name. At once, it may sound like an exaggeration or something maybe taken out of proportion, but certainly not, because where Bhagavatam is giving these glories, it is also mentioning that the Harinam or the holy name is non-different from the Lord himself, like Bhinnatvam Namanamino. The Lord is known to be Patita Pavan. He is the person who delivers the fallen souls. He is the friend of the fallen souls. And the Lord is the purest of the pure. So, Papa Vidham, like we hear that the example Prabhupada gives, that Lord himself being pure is like the sun, which can purify even the most dirtiest or the impure places or the contaminated places. So likewise, so there is no, and once we understand this fact, it is not it doesn't seem any bit of exaggeration that when one chants the name of the Lord, one immediately associates with the Lord, and the Lord being pure and Patita Pavan, he delivers in the name, he through his name delivers that chanter. So this is what Bhagavatam is glorifying in this aspect. So naturally, suffering, we understand, is suffering is due to sinful actions, and the holy name is capable of removing all the sinful reactions. And that is one of the, prime aspect of the discussion of the holy name in this Ajamala pastime, and then even between the discussions between the Yamadutas and Vishnudutas, and then later on between the Yamadutas and Yamaraj. So the core point is that the holy name can at once nullify or vanquish all the sinful reactions. And then in this purport, further Srila Prabhupada indicates that practice makes man perfect. Like we've heard this in recently in Friday in Ekadashi lecture, Prabhupada was mentioning this. Like when someone goes to an old man and say chant, that person says can't. So the point repeatedly Prabhupada mentions in the purport is make hay while sunshine, right? So when we are in physically in a good state, why not make the best opportunity or rather best use of this bad bargain called so-called material body, use our efforts to chant properly, distinctly, offenselessly, and with faith. So if a person without all this was able to chant just to indicate his son and was able to get the ultimate benefit, why not someone who has dedicated his life or had made chanting a part of his life and with a lot of love and affection upon his chanting, why can't he get the same result? So that is the core point of this verse, and then we'll further understand the topic that's for us for our discussion today, remembering at the time of death. So before I begin, since today is Bhadrapada Paunami, I would like to just briefly talk about two or three points which exclusively glorify Srimad Bhagavatam. So we all know after Krishna left from this planet, he wound up his earthly pastimes. Naturally there was a question: where did all the religious principles go? Now that the Lord of the religious principles has left the material world, naturally where we have these religious principles have taken shelter. So a very ecstatic verse is there in Bhagavatam that says, Krishna Swadhamo Upagate Dharmo Gnana Vidhi Saha Kalau Nashta Drisham Esha Puranarko Adhunoditaha Puranarka. So the Bhagavatam, Srimad Bhagavatam is compared to a sun. It is compared to like a sun, and then it has risen immediately after the departure of Krishna to dispel or dissipate the dense darkness caused by the age of Kali, which is basically characterized by ignorance. So naturally, it is mentioning that people have lost their vision. Basically, vision here means they have lost their intelligence and the aspect of understanding what to be done, what not to be done, what is good for them, what is real happiness. So these things have naturally have been eroded from people's mind and the culture. So naturally, where if one really wants to look for such knowledge, where can one find? So Bhagavatam says that's how Srimad Bhagavatam stands out amongst the many literatures that we have. It is like a Purana Arka. And then with the very first 2-3 verses, in the second verse, it is said that there are many paths people follow, right? What is like for emancipation, for material satisfaction, spiritual perfection also. But most of these paths are either one is their fruitive activities are having many faults, and then the other processes are really troublesome. So dharma projita kaitavatra. So all these, Srimad Bhagavatam kind of removes all this confusion and then clearly puts forward the highest truth or the highest conclusion of the Vedic literature, completely rejecting all the religious activities which are materially motivated. So it says that this Bhagavatam is propounding the highest truth, which can remove the tapatrayam mulanam, which can remove all the threefold miseries. And then it also says very beautifully that what is the need for any other literature, because this has been compiled by the sage Vyasadeva in his spiritual maturity, meaning his spiritual maturity, meaning he has the complete understanding of all the spiritual knowledge, and then he knows the perfect conclusion. So in that mental state, he wrote this, or he compiled rather this beautiful scripture. So that's how the Bhagavatam glorifies. And what is that highest truth? It is the exclusive devotional service. Srimad Bhagavatam it brings out the exclusivity in terms of the glories of devotional service to the Supreme Lord Krishna, which is a supreme religious principle. And Bhagavad, that is what Prabhupada calls it Bhagavata Dharma. So this is what Srimad Bhagavatam's contribution and then position in terms of all the Vedic literature. So hence it gives us a very good opportunity, in fact, a chance to properly glorify. Otherwise, Bhagavatam is not there, we would not be able to glorify. We see in any past times we have been reading by the very good arrangement of this Bhagavad Seva. We have read many past times like Akshayagna and then Prithuyagna and then so Dhruva, so many great exalted devotees in their prayers. They are glorifying the Supreme Lord. So unless they have given those prayers, we would at least we would not be really knowing what to even glorify. What are the glories, first of all? And then if we even know how to glorify also, we would not know. So again, one, it propounds the highest truth. Second, it is giving us the information about the highest religious principle. The third, it is giving us information on how to properly glorify the Supreme Lord. So these are many such, there are many other glories, but just few to name in the interest of time. And then in the last canto, the last two chapters itself, there are glories, unlimited glories of Bhagavatam, the benefits of benediction, what happens. So it says that even if one with great faith, even one recites even half a verse daily, one is sure to achieve love of God and go back to Godhead. So this is what to speak of. There are many actually benedictions mentioned. So just to mention one, I just named a few. And then, of course, today is Bhadrapada Paunami. So it mentions that the reason Bhadrapada Paunami has a significance and the relation with Bhagavatam, it's mentioned, Prabhupada, of course, mentions in the purport as well, that as we multiple times we said, Purana Bhagavatam is compared to a sun. And on it is said that, of course, I'm not an expert in astrological knowledge, but I just read and presenting as is. So it is said that on this Paunami, Bhadrapada Paunami day, the constellation, the sun is in the Leo constellation. So sun is in the Simha Rasi, which is said to be the supreme position for the sun. So then to glorify Bhagavatam, which is the essence of all the Vedic literatures and the essence of the Vedanta sutras, the king of all literatures, which is like the sun. It is said that if one on this day puts Srimad Bhagavatam on a golden throne and then gives it to another person, his ticket to back home to Godhead is guaranteed. So that's how this significance has come in terms of the relation of Srimad Bhagavatam to Bhadrapada Paunami. So this is what I thought we should discuss also, or just talk few things, because it's a day we are also waiting for in terms of trying to distribute as many Bhagavatam sets as possible. So coming back to today's verse, so again, continuing with the glorifications of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So Srimad Bhagavatam explains that the highest perfection of human life, in human life, one can achieve either by performing the perfect spiritual activities, or the perfect mystic yoga, or perfect speculative knowledge, or the Gnana Kandi process. The highest perfection one can do by doing all that is if one can at the end of the life remember the name of Supreme Lord, Ante Narayane. It says that Etaman Sancha Yogabhyam Swadharma Parinisthaya Janma Labha Parapumsha Ante Narayane. So at the end of the life, that is what all our devotional activities must culminate to. So whatever we have done in terms of our devotional activities, unless it facilitates us or it helps us to remember the holy name of the Lord at the time of the Lord and call out for Him helplessly, so it is understood that we have failed in our preparation of our life. So as Prabhupada beautifully said, that life is a preparation, then there's the examination. And even in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Antakale chamameva smaran bhaveva. So the scriptures kind of conclusively and unanimously say that death is a crucial point in the journey of the soul. And that is where if one able to take out the Lord's names, the real success of human life is said to be. And then we've heard many times, even in the past lectures on holy name this week, how if one able to develop like how one able to develop a bhava in that one particular lifetime, definitely one will be able to understand that bhava towards the end of the life. That's why Krishna says, like, Tasma Sarveshu Kaleshi, we never know when that can come. So if it is for sure concluded that this is the only way one can get liberated, then why not Tasma Sarveshu Kaleshi Mam Anusmarya Yudhesha. Krishna is instructing Arjuna. So go on fighting, but remembering me every time, that never let go a moment where you can't think of me. So that's how the scriptures are reminding us, and as we just discussed, death is an opportunity for the conditioned soul. Really, that's the only opportunity for the conditioned soul to escape from the repeated and miserable cycle of birth and death. And then many a times, so we naturally, it's said that, and in fact, even in the Yaksha Prashnas, it said, what is when Yaksha asked Yudhishthira Maharaj, what is the most astonishing thing? Then he says, every day many people die, but people in general don't think that I will die soon, or never consider the fact that death is going to approach me as well. It is considered as something late in the future, or we try to but sometimes thinking of death is also considered inauspicious work. So we purposefully try to avoid thinking of death. But actually, through this verse and the point of discussion today is all about, and the Bhagavatam is also saying like how one should all throughout his life should prepare for this ultimate moment. In fact, it said that Ayur Harati Vai Pumshan Urayan Astam Chayaso. So naturally, if you see in this world, the most sought after tourist places are where the sunrise and one can get an unobstructed and a beautiful view of sunrise and sunset. But Bhagavatam is telling that when one sees a sunrise or a sunset, one should immediately remember, oh, my lifespan has decreased. What I am doing? Am I doing the right things? Am I on the right path? Am I preparing myself? So this is the level of consciousness. Not that I'm going to die. The consciousness should be death can come at any moment. So what should be my prime duty? What should be my consciousness? So this is what the Bhagavatam is repeatedly informing us. But at the same time, when Bhagavatam is, it's not like it's trying to create a fear amongst us about the death, but it's saying like, then elsewhere also we've heard this example, like even in the verse that Ayura Harati, it says, but for a person, for a natural materialist, it is a dangerous situation. But for a person who is engrossed in devotional activities, it is actually a step closer to Krishna. So the example is given of a cat. The cat holds, if it wants to hold his baby, which is a kitten, and carry around, the only way it can hold is within its jaws. They are very sharp. But the kitten, when it's in the jaws of the cat, it feels very safe and secure. Whereas a mouse, when a cat catch hold of the mouse and it's in the jaws of the cat, it is terrible. It's a terrible and a terrifying moment for the mouse. So similarly, what the Bhagavatam is trying to say by repeatedly pointing us to this is, for devotees, that death is a moment of, in fact, the moment of joyous occasion or a rejoicing moment, because it is going to unite us to Krishna, Radha Krishna, or eternal presence, and is going to take us back to our eternal home. So we should be elated, and we should try to embrace that moment rather than like the kitten rather than like the mouse. So we discussed this point. A few more points over here to be just thought was sharing in terms of the holy name. So here, so now let's put our focus back on Ajamila and Ajamila pastimes and what we can learn from Ajamila's pastime. So here it is said that Ajamila called out the name of Lord Narayana. Okay, so we all know there are unlimited names of the Lord. In Harinam Chintamani Bhaktivinoda Thakur says there are unlimited names, but still there are some primary names and secondary names of the Lord. So it doesn't mean that the secondary names are less important. Yeah. So there are unlimited names of the Lord. So the Narayana is one such name. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur says there are primary and secondary names. So it doesn't mean that the secondary names are any less important than the primary names, but it's just that the primary names are infused with a little bit more power. Like for example, the names can be categorized like in the names which kind of help us get to know the greatness of the Lord. And then another set of names which help us get to know the sweetness of the Lord. Like for example, Mahavishnu, Great Vishnu, Paramatma, the Supreme Atma. So like that, Balrama, there are like names which kind of indicate the greatness of the Lord, which is also important. We need to understand the greatness. And there are also names like, as we just said, which indicate the sweetness of the Lord. Yashodanandan, Nandanandan, Giridhari Gopal, Gopijana Vallabha. So, we know there are innumerable Vaikuntha planets, and within the Vaikuntha planets, there's one supreme planet called Goloka. So for us, the name that's been given is the names that invoke the sweetness of the Lord in the mood of the Brajavasis. Golokera Premadana Harinama Sankirtana. So that is what we have been given. So the chanter of the holy name is awarded a particular destination based on the devotional mood of the name. So it's not like that everyone goes to any place. So based on the devotional mood of the name, chanter is awarded a particular destination. So Srila Prabhupada always used to say that it is to be generally understood that all the followers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are going back to Goloka and become servant of Sri Radha. This is something after discussing on holy name, Bhagavatam, and the death and the aspect of death, how to view death. Let's put our attention back on this Ajamila pastime. One of the very beautiful pastimes, and Srila Prabhupada wrote a wonderful book on a second chance. In fact, I should thank the Nityan Bhagavad Seva team to give this opportunity, because I had this book but never read. But wonderfully, it was the same. It's the same content, but Prabhupada wrote so elaborately and then had so beautifully explained various sections. But anyway, it was wonderful reading that, and then whatever in the time I could compile or write down few points I share. So it's basically there are three aspects mainly in this pastime. What is this conveying? One is the protection of the Lord, the Poshana aspect. We all know Bhagavatam has 10 subjects, matters, and Poshana is one subject. So this pastime kind of deals with the Poshana, the protection of the Lord, and then the futility of the atonement process. And then the third is the superiority of devotional service. So these 3 points are essentially highlighted through this pastime. So in the beginning of this pastime, Sukadeva Goswami informs Parikshit Maharaj, because previous to this comes in the first chapter. In the 5th chapter, there is a elaborate description of hellish planets. So Parikshit Maharaj is naturally concerned for the people who are going to hellish planets. He says naturally their people are inclined to do sinful activities, and if one performs spiritual activities, then one must commit sinful activities. So what is the hope for them? How to avoid the sinful, hellish, horrible, terrible, hellish planets? So he says that before one's death, it is the duty of every human being, because as we just discussed, that in the due course of performance of the future activities, one does accumulate a lot of sinful actions. So one has to voluntarily perform atonement so that all the reactions can be nullified. Otherwise, one is, we can take for granted, is sure to enter the hellish planets. So in that connection, he recites this pastime wherein there is this Ajamala. And then he also talks about this, before starting the Ajamala pastime, he talks about how, though he's talking about atonement process, he immediately says, so that his Parikshit Maharaj and the point about devotional service is not lost, he immediately says, but still this sort of atonement process, which is described in the various scriptures like austerities, performing penances, giving charity, even Jnana or accumulation of knowledge is also called an atonement process. Even one does all this atonement process, it is of no use, because it just nullifies the sinful actions, but the core tendency to commit sinful action, the root cause, is still not uprooted. So that's what he says, and he compares this to a bathing of an elephant. Like when an elephant takes a bath in a water, and then when it comes out, it immediately sprinkles mud all over its body. So it is said that he immediately, the moment he talks about atonement, he points out that this is similar to that. Like it is similar to bathing of an elephant. So, but the only way one can uproot this tendency of committing sinful activities is through devotional service. And then otherwise, this tendency to, if one has a tendency to atone for one's sinful activities, one may atone for them, but once it is done, immediately one's mind again runs towards the material activities. So if we briefly, I will not describe Ajamala's pastime in great detail, because that's a matter of discussion in another forum. So we know that there was a Brahmana, Ajamila, who was born into a pious family. So he studied all the Vedic literatures. It is said that he was a reservoir of good qualities, so a good character, good conduct, everything good. And he knew everything about the Vedic injections. He was very mild, gentle. His mind and senses were in control. He was always truthful. And when I was reading the verse, you'll be astonished that, like, to read his good qualities. And he was respect to his spiritual master. He knew how to chant the Vedic mantras. He knew what sort of respect to be given to different superiors, so on, so on, and so forth. And he was he would never speak nonsense. He would not envy anyone. I mean, it seems it's like almost an exalted Vaishnava. So one day he happened to go to forest to get some items for his daily oblation, and in the pathway he sees Shudra embracing a prostitute, and they were in a very intimate situation. So having seen that, actually he sees that, but he immediately, it's wonderful because I never read these 2 points. So it said that Ajamila, I will read that out. He said he patiently tried to remember all the instructions of the Shastras, not to even see a woman. And then he tried to control his senses, his lusty desires, because the moment he saw that intimate scene, the dormant lusty desires suddenly arose. So he tried his best to control his mind. He went back his home, but that thought kept lingering in his mind. And then eventually he couldn't control, and he brings the prostitute home. He abandons his chaste wife, he abandons his parents, and then he starts to live with his wife. So here we understand that how Krishna, we can connect this to the verses that Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, that the mind is the best of the friends and the greatest of the enemy. And then that's how, when Krishna talks to Arjuna about in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita about the Dhyana Yoga, he says, forget about all this. I can't do. The mind is restless, and it is always chanchala, restless, and always flickering. I can't do all this. So that's when Krishna talks about the devotional process, right? So we can clearly see character and personality of Ajamila, how he was forcibly driven away. And in fact, at this same point, Krishna says that a mind can carry away a man like a boat on the water can be swept away by a huge wind. Like if a man, even one of his senses, his fixes, like can carry away, even if one of the roaming senses on which the mind focuses can carry away man's intelligence. So it's the same thing exactly. So Krishna diagnosed the root cause of human degradation, and this is what we are seeing there. So he's exposing the root cause. So his intelligence was carried away. How much ever he tried to control, still anyway. So that is what we are discussing. So we should also be careful that in our devotional practices, we may think that we are doing devotional because most of us are sadhakas. So Prabhupada says that royal accidents can even happen on a royal road. So it doesn't mean that, so we should never lower our guard in terms of our devotional practices and trying to maintain good conduct. We never know when can we be ensnared by Maya and Maya's agents. So that's why that's why he said that Krishna also talks about this aspect that titikshava, the aspect of tolerance is very important. One should develop the aspect of tolerance because tolerance is the preliminary qualification for one to achieve liberation. Matra spashasku kaunteya shitoshna sukadukada agama payuna nityas tam titikshasva bharata. So the first instruction actually in the Bhagavad Gita, the very first instruction Bhagavad Gita Krishna gives to Arjuna is to tolerate the urges of the senses. And in fact, or the urges or the pains from the senses, both ways. So even our NOI, that's what Rupa Goswami is instructing us, right? All the Vegas, Vacho Vegam, Manasat Krodha Vegam, Jihva Vegam, Udara Upastha Vegam, all these Vegas one should able to tolerate. So that is what in the preparation, in the life preparations, these form a major heart. So how we are able to control these urges, like we have many devotees have talked about the anarthas or the aparadhas. So all of these during the course of the Holy Name Week itself. So all of these are waiting to burst and explode within us. So it is not possible. It's like a volcano. When it blows, it's ready to burst. It's not in our control to hold it, or just put a lid onto it. So moving further, we understand that so this Ajamila had brought in this prostitute to his home, and in order to naturally the prostitute had so many desires, and in order to keep her happy so that she could keep him happy, he started to doing all kinds of sinful activities. And then he started stealing. He forgot all his Brahmanical qualifications. He did all sorts of abominable activities. So Prabhupada here talks about in the book that it can be fair, the person who is simply after sense gratification, who is maddened after sense gratification, can be compared to a silkworm, which basically uses its saliva to create a cocoon around its own self, and then it creates in such a way that it ultimately gets trapped in that cocoon, and it is just trapped, and it cannot get out of it. So similarly, a person who is mad after sense gratification, Nuna Paramatta, said that when he's mad, he just goes on committing sinful activities without knowing that he's creating in such a strong web network of the fruitive activities around oneself that there is no chance of freeing oneself out of this web. So this is what Prabhupada is instructing us, that we should be careful that in our lives, in our discharge, in our performance of duties, we are also part of doing fruitive activities, but we should be very careful that we should not be caught up in this or create a web in such a way that we are not able to get out of it. So as such, and then as he was doing this, he became old, and naturally death, the moment of death came. So when the death came, he said that he saw three, in the number is also mentioned, three fearful personalities who are the Yamadutas who come and try to pull him out of his body, the soul out of the body. And in fear of that situation, he sees his son who is very nearby playing. And Ajamila, even at the age of 80, there's a long story, but I think just to cut short, we're also almost closing in on time. So his son Narayana was playing nearby. So he is very fond of him, and in affection, and he's in that anxiety, he just helplessly calls out for his son. So as soon as it does, the Yamadutas appear, and then forbade Vishnudutas appear and forbade the Yamadutas from taking Ajamila. And then a beautiful discussion happens there. So, and Prabhupada also says that few points for us, because we are talking about remembering at the time of death, that materialist thinks that Deha Patra Kaladishu Atma Sainyeshu Apisat. So the materialist thinks that yes, I'm passing my life, I'm preparing, old age is coming, so I'll plan for my retirement, I'll plan in such a way such that my wife, my children will be, my bank balance, my home, my other assets will be able to save me. But Prabhupada says that is a fool who doesn't consider that is nothing but a fool. So the right way to prepare for one's end of life is to invest in activities, like invest in devotional service. But when we put in the activities that just revolve or move around the family, the relatives, the kids, and the assets, they are in a way creating non-permanent asat, things that which cannot really help us, and which are totally incapable of giving us protection. So we put all our efforts there, but the result that comes out is zero. Whereas if we put the same efforts in the devotional service, the devotional activities, which are the only activities according to Bhagavatam that a human being is supposed to be performing, or of utmost importance, we can say. So if you put that effort, the similar effort in these activities, our protection is 100% guaranteed. So this is what Prabhupada is also instructing us from this first time, how to prepare one's life as we approach old age. And there's also a few beautiful points on Vanaprastha and other aspects. So continuing further, so then actually, in fact, to everyone's astonishment, even when we read first time, so the Yamadutas say, how can you stop us from taking away this person? He's such a sinful person. He is supposed to be, he deserves, in fact, he has the rightful claim to go to hellish planet. So then they explain the glories of the holy name. And then while discussion is happening, Ajamila happens to hear all this discussion. So they say that even when actually he has no sinful actions. So in fact, they chastise the Yamadutas. So you are caretakers of justice, and you are the servants of the supreme judge. And are you not able to distinguish that this person has no sinful reactions in his bank balance? In fact, not only at this moment, all the while when he has named his son Narayana, and all the while when he was chanting his name out of affection, all his sinful activities were getting vanquished completely. So in fact, it is said to be that this chant is not really the cause. He has already nullified all his sinful reactions. And then they give beautiful analogies like how fire kind of completely burns out wood, and how a medicine, like a potent medicine, if someone takes a medicine, even without knowing, or even if he's forced to take it, the medicine will still have its effect. It's going to act upon the person who has taken it. It's not that if the person didn't take it by full consciousness, or if someone has made him forcibly take that medicine, the medicine will stop to act its potency. So similarly, the holy name is so powerful that even one chants without any particular intention or really motivation, it is going to have its impact or effect, positive effect on the chanter. So then the Yamadutas go back, and then they put this predicament in front of Yamaraj, and wonderfully Yamaraj says, that's it, what you have heard is right. In fact, whoever from now, be careful, don't approach Paramahamsas, or don't approach who have those souls who have been part of the devotee association, or who have at least chanted the name of the Lord once. Don't approach them. Bring me only those souls who are averse to devotee association, who are averse to the chanting of the holy name. So that's why all our efforts in outreach and all these activities are to build up this Ajnata Spriti for every soul, right? So like that someone else has done for us, and today we are now sitting on this auspicious day and discussing and hearing. So that's why our effort every time is to, we don't see the end result. That is also an impact. The people who, that is also a point we keep it in mind, that whoever are taking up chanting, we try to cultivate so that they can go to Guru Ashraya. But at least initially, our idea is to spread the holy name, or that people get the effects of the holy name as much as possible without any consideration. So in that case, there is unlimited service for us, right? Because sometimes this, I think, oh, how many people can we teach, or how many people pictures we can do when people are not taking. But if this is the case, then actually there is limitless and endless service. So we are almost close at time. I just talked about a few points. So how one can remember this name at the time of the death? Krishna himself says in Bhagavad Gita, actually, I was hearing from one hospice doctor who specializes in palliative care. He says that at the time of death, he was sometimes, his realizations he was sharing, that sometimes some people who he may outwardly be seen that he may not be a devotee or kind of a not so pious person. At the time of the death, somehow through the Lord's arrangement, they get to, when they're about to leave the body, they get to see a picture of Radha Krishna, and then think about Radha Krishna and leave the body like that. So he says that, so it's not really, yes, our efforts are there, and we have also seen so many great devotees in our movement also living, including Prabhupada, how they have left gloriously, wonderfully, either by arrangement. So it could be either by arrangement or by accident. So how can that happen? So it doesn't happen. So there is a reason, right? What could be the reasons, of how can we ensure that we can remember the Lord at the time of death. So in Krishna Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, "Matta smrita gnana pohanancha." From me comes the remembrance or even forgetfulness. And then later on in the Chatusloki Bhagavad Gita also, he says that for one who is constantly dedicated in serving me, I give them the knowledge by which they can come back to me. So then there's a beautiful small story just want to share in this regard. So is it just that Krishna will give us the remembrance, but what is the connection? What else is there that can help us get this remembrance? So when Sudama goes to meet Krishna, Krishna says immediately, and then when they were recounting their childhood events, so he says, "Do you remember at the time when we were in Sandipani Muni's ashram? Once we were asked to get firewood from the forest, so we went, and then suddenly there was heavy rain, thunderstorm, and so darkness. We couldn't find our way home. We were like being swept away with water. Only thing we could do is hold each other's hand and stay afloat. And then the next day, when the sunrise happened, our guru, in great anxiety, he came and found us in a very distressful condition." And then he says these points which are for us very important to contemplate on. So I'll just recollect those points. So he says, so this point, yeah. So he says, "You have suffered so much for my sake. The body is the most dear to every living creature, but you are so dedicated in serving me that you completely disregarded your own comfort. This indeed the duty of all true disciples, to repay the debt of their spiritual master by offering him with pure hearts their wealth and even their very lives." So in the beginning, we said, and then he says that towards one more point. So he says, "Your boys are first class Brahmanas. You both are first class Brahmanas, and I am satisfied with you. May all your desires be fulfilled, and may the Vedic mantras you have learned never lose their meaning for you." And in the purport, Prabhupada says that what this means is, by the Guru's blessings, they'll be able to remember this mantra these mantras, whatever they learned, their meaning will be ever fresh in their minds. So in the beginning also, Sukadeva Goswami tells that before the end of one life, one should repay all the atonements and repay all the debts. So for us, the biggest debt we have is with spiritual master, for able to give us this process of Diksha. And it is said that in the process of initiation, the holy name is already powerful. But when the spiritual master chants the holy name on the beads and gives to us, it becomes even more powerful. So we are definitely indebted to our spiritual masters to give us, who has given us this name, which can take us to the, as we discussed, this is not a simple name, right? It's a Golokera Prema Dhana. So if we are able to through unmotivated and uninterrupted devotion service to our spiritual masters, then HG Prasadat Bhagavat Prabhu. And when he is pleased, the Lord within the heart will give us the remembrance at the time of the death to remember the holy names and go back to Godhead. So with the end, I just want to say that, so in the maritime, in the early 20th century, there was when ships were prominent ways of transport, there was a term coined SOS call. And even today, it's mostly called a distress call. So SOS is a Morse code, which basically sends out signal in a very particular format. So later on, that SOS also came to be known as save our ship or save our souls. So it is said to be the very important distress call that one can make in times of danger. So in conclusion, Ajamila made the perfect distress call. What is it? He called out Narayana. So if you see Narayana, Na, Ra, Ya, Na, each of the syllable makes us to keep our mouth open, and it makes us to pronounce the word in a, there is a certain stress or effort needed. If you compare other words like words which make us close our mouths, but if you have to say Narayana, there's certainly some effort needed. So if you do it in anxiety, there's a lot more effort needed, and naturally that helplessness comes out. So he made the perfect distress call, and he heard the perfect conclusion between of the Vedic scriptures due to the discussion between Yamadutas and Vishnudutas, and then later on he perfected his life. So with that, we should also take Ajamila's pastime as an inspiration to keep making our perfect distress call and keep remembering the perfect conclusion that Srimad Bhagavatam has given to us and perfect our life. Towards the end, I just want to share this witty statement once I heard in connection to this. One devotee was sharing, if we fail to remember the names of the Lord, we will continue to become, or we will be a remember of this material world, and will continue to have the permanent membership of this material world. So thank you very much. So in conclusion, we discussed about the glories of Bhagavatam, the glories of holy name, how Narayana, especially the word, is capable of nullifying or nullifying all the sinful reactions. And we discussed about the holy name given to us. We discussed about Ajamila's pastime and the aspect of how to see death. And we also discussed about how to prepare for death also. And then finally, we should remember our duties towards spiritual master and continue to make this stressful. Hare Krishna. Thank you once again for giving me this opportunity. Any questions, if I can answer, I'll answer. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thanks a lot for the wonderful class and the nice summarization at the end. Two things which I liked, it struck me was lifespan decreases when the sun rises. But we always think that, okay, when the new day comes, but it is the other way around when our lifespan decreases. And it is for devotees, it is a step closer to Krishna. But for materialist, it's a very different case. And one more thing you mentioned was that struck me today was the most wonderful thing when Yudhishthira was asked. So Yudhishthira was saying that like everybody sees that others are dying, but they think that they are permanent in this world. So thanks a lot, Prabhuji. And devotees lines are unmuted. Devotees can unmute and ask any questions. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Yeah, maybe it's a silly question I'm asking. They say he remembers at the end, he recites Narayana, Ajamila. But if one is all the time he is remembering him, is the effect they get will be the same?
As it is said that here in the verse that we are also discussing, so when one is able to remember all the time, or even once, the effort is basically liberation. So the holy names, as we discussed, each holy name has a devotional mood and a potency. So even once can be, if it is chanted, or even multiple times it is chanted, the liberation aspect is there. But if one is chanting in the mood of loving mood or in further devotional moods, then the effect could be further improved. Like it could mean that one is now trying to establish one's relation with the Lord. And then as one is trying to establish one's relation with the Lord, there is loving service, and then so on and so forth. So the destinations could be improved. But yes, the basic effect as such, when one chants either one or multiple times, the effect of liberation is same for everyone. Hopefully it answers. Any further clarification, Madhi?
No, I was just thinking, Tesham Satata Yuktana, we say all the time we remember. And if Ajamila just pronounces once, but again, he will not be calling his own, the Lord, he will be calling his son.
Yes.
And as you said rightly, Prabhu, he doesn't get liberated, he will be just brought back again.
Yeah. So basically, he will be the point here is that, of course, we didn't read many things, and then many other points to be discussed. And the main point here is what for us is the holy name nullishes all the sinful reactions or the sinful effects and saves from the hellish conditions. So, but when one again does, that's what the point to be remembered is. Ajamila was brought back, and then when he heard his natural, his chance, the second chance he got still a new lease of life. So in the new lease of life, if he had not performed, it is said immediately he goes to Haridwar and he performs devotional service. So if he would have not done that, as we said, as one Prabhuji said, he would have continue to become a re-member of the Lord and have a membership in the world. But since he performed devotional service, then he was able to, at the end of the life, go back home. So So yeah, it's a subtle differences, but the point there is the holy name is capable of giving liberation. So this is what the aspect is being talked about. And of course, as one gets to that stage, one will be able to progress further. Is what also to be remembered.
That's the best part of the thing. If you don't remember the Lord, you'll become a permanent member of this material world.
Yeah.
Thank you, Prabhu. Dandot Brahma.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Sri Bhagavat Prabhu, Dandot Pranam Prabhuji.
Hare
Very
Krishna.
nice class. Yeah, I think it's probably one of the final exam. Each and every one of us have to take it, and hope we are able to remember the key lessons of Ajamila Charitra and be able to apply this in our life. I think it shows how merciful the Lord is. If one is unconsciously or without love for God, and if he is reciting the name, and if he was and he was able to move towards perfecting himself in devotional service, what would be the effect if someone is consciously chanting the holy name throughout their life with little love and affection? I think it's a great kind of hope-giving statement by Srila Prabhupada for sadhakas, Prabhuji. So I think Prabhupada, across many of his lectures, he keeps repeating about the story of Ajamila. Somewhere or other, there will be one statement of Ajamila in Prabhupada's class here and there, because that gives a lot of motivations to sadhakas, Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Yeah, I think that's true, Prabhu. Thanks for making the point, and that's why he elaborated. The Second Chance is such a wonderful book. So it should be multiple times it should be read.
Very nice class.
And then
it's not that
yeah.
Go ahead, Prabhu.
No, I'm just saying one more thing he mentions also is like the application. So it's the point where we were talking about when we learn things, the devotional principles. So when we apply in our life, so that's when the remembrance also becomes easier. So Prabhupada also mentions multiple times in that book. So just wanted to share that.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you for
And
the
also,
wonderful class. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Prabhu, one particular reflection which I had was, generally we hear the stories of Ajamila, and general people have a tendency that, only when you're old or when you're that time, when you're going to leave your body, you should remember, so let's do it later. But they forget that Ajamila had done a lot of austerities and other things before. We always try to see the end aspect. I think it's very, and we think it is very easy to manage that, but it is Krishna who gives remembrance and forgetfulness. So I mean, there was a point which I just as you were saying, I was just
thanks for adding that.
Before
and after both he had done.
Yeah, that's right. That was a very important point, that even afterwards he changed. He just got transformed afterwards. In fact, he just regretted what he had all the the sins he had committed subsequently of not remembering the Lord. That was wonderful. Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Thank you.
Keshagor Prabhu, you want to talk? You want to say something?
Yes, Pujay. I'm just reflecting this. Ajamila got second chance, and also in Gaur Leela, Jagai and Mata, he got second chance. And because I have been hearing some speakers saying that they never committed Vaishnava Aparadh. Can you say something about this?
Who didn't commit Vaishnava Aparadh?
Even Ajamila, even Jagai and Mata, they never committed Vaishnava Aparadh. So the Lord forgave them and then gave them a second chance.
So actually, here in this verse, actually in the supplementary notes, Prabhupada talks about this point that Ajamila never was chanting in the stage of Namabhas. He was not a Nama Aparadhi. So that's the point Prabhupada was making here. I thought we will matter of subject in a deeper discussion. Wherein he was not chanting with the intention, okay, I will chant Narayana. Prabhupada says he was not even aware of the positive effects of the word Narayana. So he was chanting Narayana, he was getting freed, but he was not doing with the intention that, okay, I'll chant Narayana, again I will do sinful activities. So maybe if you take this example even in Ajamila, that's how Ajamila is said to be. He was chanting in the Namabha stage. So that's what enabled him to get the benefit that whatever he got in terms of the second chance. So in case of Jagai Madai, as we see that they've also offended a Vaishnava in the sense that they've bet Nityananda Prabhu. But I think in the case, it's the mercy of it's like the inconceivable mercy of Nityananda Prabhu that has saved them. So beyond that, I don't know if I have, I'm not sure if I have the realization to say that they have not make any aparadhas, Jagai and Madai. But what I've heard is, what gets highlighted is, it's due to the mercy of Nityananda Prabhu they were delivered. That's why we sing also in the Nityananda Prabhu's glorification. Maybe any other devotee has some realizations or points, please share. That's all, Prabhu. Keshav Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Because of time constraint, now we'll end the class with Vaishnava Pranam. Keshav Gaur Prabhu, your question is clarified, right?
Pardon, Prabhu?
Your questions are clarified?
No, I need some more discussion.
Yeah.
Okay.
Beyond my capability.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
Yes, Prabhuji. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha
Kalpatarubhyascha
kripa sindhubhya vacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo
Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.